We were prompted and inspired to write the text because Steve and I and a couple of our colleagues were so often angry that the existing textbooks that we had to work with were archaic. They assumed that technology hadn't changed for a decade, they assumed that teaching methods hadn't changed, they assumed that students hadn't changed, and that the way that industry worked in the marketing research industry hadn't changed much in a decade. And we found ourselves using perhaps just a half of the textbook and filling in the remainder with what we knew what was going on in the real world. And this was an opportunity for us to remedy that and put in all of those notes and extra information and throw out the rubbish so that we had something that was really quite current. Well, there are 3 Australian authors. One of them now has moved off to University of Kent. What we're most proud of is different for each of us. Steve has done a superb job of integrating qualitative research with the quantitative stuff, recognising that there's a role for both modes of research, and indeed you can't do quant unless you've done a decent job of qual, and showing that there are some really good methods of integrating those. That's Steve's contribution. Ben has created some fabulous examples of measurement tools and techniques and their applications, and created some good examples using Excel and SPSS and so forth. My contribution is in the multivariate statistics area and research write-up type of area, and I feel really, really pleased that that I've made, as much as I can, accessible material which a lot of people find really quite abstract and difficult to deal with. If I'm showing the textbook to somebody else, then probably the 3 things I want to share with them is the integration between qualitative research and quantitative research, so that people can, step 1, work out what's going on, step 2, work out how much it's going on. The second thing is the various signposts which are designed to help students work out what decisions they need to make at what stages in the research process. And then to bring all of that together, there are flowcharts at the beginning of each section of the text. Students will like most in the text, firstly, Qualtrics, which is brought across from the US edition. It's a feature which is, I think, going to really be helpful to help students understand the research process better. It will make the course and the steps more interactive and a great deal more fun. The second thing they'd really like, I think, is that in each chapter we make a promise about what they're going to learn, we deliver on that promise, and then they see a summary at the end of the chapter, so that those students who want to read the whole chapter all the way through and get the full information are able to do that. And then later on, when they want a nice summary so they can remind themselves of that material, they can just go straight to that summary, and it highlights those key features which they should have learned then. And the final thing, which I think students are really going to enjoy out of it, is that it's not just the textbook. There's a huge amount of online information in the form of quizzes, practice exercises, and other material which is going to be constantly updated. And the third thing which is going to be useful for the students is not just the textbook itself, but all of the online material, which is designed to be extra and which will be constantly updated as we need it, so that students have access to end-of-chapter quizzes, data sets, case studies, and the Qualtrics links, so that it really does become an ongoing and useful resource. Our book's different from other marketing research textbooks because it's up to date. It deals with material and has examples which are really quite current. Indeed, there are a couple of sections which are unique to this book and not in any other textbook in the world. It material on conjoint analysis, for example, our material on best-worst scaling doesn't appear in any other textbook. We're very, very proud of that. The book is written by people who are actually working regularly with practicing marketing researchers. We do a lot of consulting work. We're academics, but we work in the industry as well, and so we want to reflect that experience in the book as well so that it becomes real for the students. We've incorporated Qualtrics, which is an outstanding online survey research tool which makes the course and the learning process that much more interactive, that much more fun. The big challenge in teaching marketing research, especially to undergraduate students, is that it's really a series of extremely abstract and therefore difficult tasks for these undergraduate students. They have to take a set of symptoms and try to sort out what the actual business or marketing problem is. Then they have to take that business or marketing problem and turn it into a set of very specific research questions. Then they have to take those research questions and work out what information they need in order to answer the questions. Then they have to work out how to gather that information. Then they have to gather the information. And then they have to transform that data, which isn't really information, into information. And then they have to report that information to a client to show that the question has been answered. And each one of those is a very abstract and an extremely difficult question. And the whole thing becomes impossible if you just throw students into the deep end and say, here, do it. It's too hard. The textbook and the resources that go with it help students and help teaching faculty with that, because we recognise what those steps are and try to break it down into a series of discrete decisions so that students and faculty can step their way through. Those first stages are crucially important. If they can't get that right, then the whole thing falls apart. And so we spend a lot of time in the text and with the ancillary resources focusing students on dealing with the actual research question and trying to refine it into something which is useful and answerable. So that, for example, we don't just deal with broad kinds of attitude type questions, certainly that might be important, but behavioural issues, word of mouth type issues, how people respond to different sorts of questions, all become important components of the research.